Okay, so today we're gonna do a quick oxalic acid treatment. We fed them new sugar bricks, so it's January 19th. It's been fairly cold, not crazy cold for Eastern North Carolina, but it's been cold, and today it's mid 50s, definitely warmer than that in the sun, so probably a good time to do an oxalic acid treatment. I did one about 2 weeks ago, so I'll pull out one of the traps to show you kind of couple seeing some dead mites, which is good, and this will kind of be round 2 of the oxalic acid. I did a mite check in the fall, and it wasn't bad. They were there, well, I think within acceptable levels. That was back in, I think, late October, right around the time I lost my one hive that I did, and probably because I hadn't treated in enough time. So this will be round 2. That's probably a decent amount. I'm not going to do a full Varroa wash until probably late winter or right before spring kicks off, just to see where they're at before they start making honey and stuff. But I think this will be a pretty good preventative. So this will be 2 treatments, and then I'll monitor the mite levels in the Varroa boards underneath the hives and just see how they are. So, all right. So I'm pretty sure you can't see this, but so 2 weeks ago, cleaned this thing off and pulled it out today. There's some dead hive beetles, and there's a decent number. I know, again, you probably can't see any of this, but I'm counting. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. There might be a couple dozen dead mites all around here, but that's good. I think that's good. So I treated. It was pretty empty, and now I've got probably 2 or 3 dozen dead mites on the board, which means that the treatment's working. So, or theoretically. So I'm not breaking open the hives to check for brood or anything like that. So I guess my passive way of doing it is just treat a couple times, even if there is brood in there, over 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then it should get all the bees treated, and then mite level should be pretty low come spring, in theory. So that's the plan. So I will scrape this off and get to it. All right, so a quick 30-second on the oxalic acid treatment here. So oxalic acid, it's a naturally occurring acid that the bees can tolerate, but it kills the mites. And so how you do it is you get one of these little vaporizers, and then you put it in there. It heats it up super hot and turns the crystals into smoke, and it basically covers all the bees with that vapor, and then any mites that are on the bees will get killed, and then fall off, and then you don't have mite problems anymore. So they can tolerate it. It still stresses them out, but they can tolerate it. So it's a good treatment for the Varroa mites. So how you do it? First, you got to plug up as many holes as possible. So top's plugged. We got the entrance plugged, and if you have any screened, bottom board or whatever, you plug up the outsides of that. So you basically get it to where all that smoke, all that vapor is going to stay inside the box and cover as much of the bees as possible. So for these vaporizers, basically you want to do one of these little scoops that comes with it. Generally 1 per brood box. So if you got 2, you do 2, and then yeah. So this is kind of my weakest hive. It's one of my splits that didn't really work out. Had to combine it with another split that was also not really working out. But they're good. They're the slowest to eat all the sugar as we keep feeding them, but they're still in there. There was a decent number I could tell from the top. Population looks okay. Obviously means that they've still got a queen in there. So we're just going to do everything we can to keep them alive through the winter. So this will help. So obviously this stuff is pretty toxic to humans. So that's why you see with the respirator, and I've got some goggles that I'll put on. This may be a little bit of overkill, but it was cheap on Amazon, so $20 worth the money. So I'm gonna go ahead and suit up. Now try to talk loudly if I need to, but for the most part, I'm gonna stick it in there. You want to get the the acid underneath where the cluster is, and these guys are generally front half of the hive, right kind of down here, so a little bit off center. So I'm going to stick it in right there, try to get it right underneath the cluster. But if it's nice and boxed up, that vapor is going to get around and cover everything anyway. So as long as you've done the prep work ahead of time, you'll be good. So I'll stick it in there, press it on, and there's directions on here. It takes about 3 minutes, vaporizes, and then cools down, and it basically tells you how to do it. So it's a pretty easy process. So here we go. And a good tip when you're doing this, if you put your smoker nearby or off to the side, you can tell where the wind's blowing. So if any of that vapor does escape, I can tell it's going to blow that way. In theory, if I don't have this respirator and the goggles and such, I can just follow the wind and protect myself fairly well. All right, so that's pretty much it. So it goes for about 3 minutes, light turns off, and you're done. You got to bring a little 12 volt battery or car battery to plug it into, and then it works wherever. So pretty straightforward. You know, I can do all 5 of my living hives in about 15 minutes, and you know, someday on a bigger scale, it'll make things a lot easier. The key is you just got to make sure you continue to treat, because what oxalic acid will not penetrate where the brood is at. So if you're trying to get, you know, if there's varroa mites inside of capped brood, they'll be fine. So the oxalic acid will not get to them compared to some other mite treatments, formic acid or whatever. So what I'll do is I'm going to take that apart. I'm going to throw the respirator back on just to be safe, and then pull it out, and then put the excluder back on, and then that's it. And I'll kind of monitor the mite levels on the varroa boards in the next couple weeks, and if I'm seeing like a ton of dead ones still, I'll probably do a third treatment, maybe early February, just to have a nice standoff between now and when they start making honey, because you can't do the oxalic acid when there's honey on the hive. So you want to have a nice separation, and then if you're having to treat for mites while there's honey, you want to use a different method. But oxalic acid is user-friendly, very convenient to do a ton of hives at the same time. You don't have to let them sit and wait for the perfect temperature and blah 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 necessarily like some of the other ones. So it's a pretty quick way to treat for mites. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the rest of them, and that's about it. Snail kill. All right, so one other thing I did up here on top of the oxalic acid treatments today, I basically took a bunch of scrap crap that I had and put together like a little pollen feeder. So pretty crude, a stick with some PVC on it, and I've got some of the substitute pollen in there. So you know, obviously I'm not up here every other day. So, you know, if it rains in the middle of the week and I've put pollen out and it's not protected, it's gone to waste. So, in theory, these PVC pipes will protect it from the rain and then give the bees somewhere to come on the days, you know, it's getting up into the high 60s, low 70s in the middle of winter, and they start going foraging and stuff. So, give them a spot to come congregate, and so I'll take a look at it over the next couple weeks, see how how much it's being used, and theoretically the rain doesn't destroy all this pollen, and hopefully no bears or any other rodents or whatever is running around these places decides to get hungry for pollen. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you in the loop.